Another session, double dipping. Still more to unpack. But first a poem entitled Escapitude. Little portmanteau. Escape, quietude. Escapitude. Blessings in disguise, of course, never seem so at their chosen times. Like blessings in the skies, such as rain when it is wet, which is always so, agreed? Urges you indoors, but can't quite even yet. Even ice when it is slippery, which like water likewise itself remains. The better to keep the lion, the better to heed the lion when he roars, and keep you fixed within appointed domains, if only within your unlocked doors. For one can venture out regardless of all such blessings that may possibly bless, that seek to anyway explain the quiet beating of one's breast, that bears still out and past impeding greets the traveler behind disguised boundaries. What sweeter flowers and sweeter meats, past anointing fountains and far-off foundries of long departing fleets. Thank you. Thank you very much. Funny thing with Thalia, muse of comedy, of all things humorous, comic. It's sort of a point that was made by this lady, this actress I met. I was telling her about acting, and she was asking if I did anything else, and then I started telling her about making songs, making poetry, even the visual art I made a while ago now, and what have you, and so on and so forth. And Paul has made this point probably about a billion times. It's sort of a truism that all the different muses, they all move in synchrony, and well, I mean, so I don't bring that up just to restate the truism, but because it occurs to me that a facet of that synchrony between them all is that they are all, whether it's poetry, music, humor, history, and on, not to leave anybody out. Just can't really bring it to mind all of them at once. They all, to my thinking, partake of a certain kind of infinity. Anyway, not very funny, is it? I was trying to think of something funny was occurring to me in the car. However, just a little idea. I don't know if I'll even use it, but a little idea for a little funny thing you could do in the car, because one of my characters is messing with a charger cable. He's having a real hard time charging his terrible little smartphone. One writes from experience, of course, and I'm totally addicted to this vape pen, this vapular device, nicotine injection machine. No, just kidding. I'm not injecting nicotine yet. You know, that's serious stuff once you start hitting that main vein. But no, I got this little vapor. Mr. Vapor, they call it. They don't call it that, but I have a USB thingamajig on the side of my car. I'll just show it to you. There it is, lying dead. Not much to look at. Not particularly beautiful to look at. Nevertheless, a thing. And we might have noticed it's not lighting up because it's like at a weird angle. And I can't do it with my finger, but you pull it forward a little bit, it has like a little light that glows as if it were some kind of MacBook Pro or something. I'm inhaling the digital essence of the online world, virtual world of that thing, apparently. Sort of the aesthetic. Moment. I forgot I had my AC on. A little bit chilly. So whenever I want that light to throb for me and get all juiced up, I have to place an object behind it, just a quarter of an inch worth. So this morning I took a straw. My wife got Chick-fil-A in my car the other day. We were swapping cars so I could have the minivan with the car seats and the kids. And there was a red straw and then this big Chick-fil-A water. And so I put that there, and it was working for a moment, and then I noticed that the straw was just slowly sliding down. Like sand in an hourglass. And lo and behold, I think now it's on the floor. But that struck me as amusing. It's like an amusing thing that if you had a close-up of that, and maybe somehow finagled a little bit more drama into why that device was needed. It doesn't even have to be that device. But, someone's trying to do something, anything really. It doesn't have to even be technology related particularly. But they're trying to do something. I mean, this is sort of a famous thing, isn't it? Like spinning plates on the Ed Sullivan Show or what have you. And so, I could imagine a scene, for instance, with my thing, this little red straw. Possibly there'd be a funnier color to use. Maybe orange would be a little funnier. A rainbow straw. You don't really clown it up, but it doesn't have to be. And the point is that the straw is sliding, and for whatever reason, this device is dearly needed. And then someone gets a phone call or is distracted by doing something else that's very necessary. I was thinking like a job interview would be funny. And, is doing a million things, but then has to remember every, 15 seconds to come back and to push the straw up around 4 or 5 inches so that it can begin its slow descent again. Situations in general are littered with are just really littered with humorous things if you look for them. The same way that there are insects under every rock you turn over almost. Insects and earthworms underneath every rock you turn over, which is something I've been actually doing literally with my son. He's getting older now. He's getting interested in bugs. So we go in the backyard and we'll flip over rocks and try to find the creepy crawlers. But the same way, and maybe sometimes you do have to turn over a few stones, so to speak, to find the humorous things, because they don't always present themselves to you for review. I think most people in the modern setting, along with everything else, are free to, if they like, get their comedy in a prepackaged, consumable way, consumeristic way. You go to the website that has everything, and you click on the button that shows you all of the different categories by which everything is segmented and cataloged. You click the one that says comedy. Then from there you get subgenre upon subgenre, sub-genre. Oh, I think today I would like a scuba diving melodrama with a rom-com twist involving a black man and a white man who just can't seem to get along. until finally a wise-cracking Asian gentleman shows them a thing or two in Chinatown. And if only, that would actually be pretty cool. If you could drill down as specific as that. More often than not, though, it's some kind of propaganda. There's some truth in this world, but mostly it's lies, as Rupert Morris hath taught us. But point being that, you know, comedy can be a prepackaged thing. ComedyCentral.com. But there's actually way more comedy in the real world. It's like everywhere. Oh man, there is. If you like have eyes to see it, is the problem. But like literally just like going anywhere. I remember incidentally that there was sort of a pastime that developed between some friends of mine in high school. One friend in particular, where being high school aged, teenage aged, not being allowed to drink or use, you know, any substances all that illicitly, which wasn't a problem for our consciences at the time, but you know, it just wasn't easy to acquire either. We would but having driver's licenses and you know, being bored as all get out, my one friend John would call me up a lot, and we'd just go to the local Kmart, the local big Kmart. We'd never buy anything typically, unless we got hungry or something and actually wanted something. But the point of it was to like go and we just went there to mock all the products. Basically, we would just like walk through, sort of like in a really like lazy clip, the Kmart, and just like point out everything that we thought was really dumb and stupid, and make fun of it. It's actually kind of a fun thing to do. Or even like the Rite Aid, you can do that with, and CVS, because there's so much like there's so much hideous marketing on display, like especially a bigger store like a Walmart or Kmart, because there's so many like a little more niche products that have no godly use whatsoever, or ungodly use for that matter, most of the time. And so you can just you know, if you're not able to really amuse yourself and entertain yourself with your own words, need that crutch. It's quite a fun thing to do. It's sort of a blood sport. Even now, I kind of do that not with anybody else, but just when I'm by myself. If I have a spare moment, I've let myself daydream through the aisles of the Rite Aid, and just like some of the things you see in there are just so completely retarded. It's almost awesome, but if it wasn't also terrible. So I don't know. Probably don't do that all the time, but hey, point being, like, there's comedy out there, just even in the inanimate world. I remember in college as well. I guess I'm just kind of reminiscing now for a little bit. I remember being in college as well with my best bud James. That's how we got so thick and thief-like. Going around, and you know, we both just like, well, at the school we went to, St. John's, which I've already talked about a lot, they did give you grades, and if you got good grades, it actually turns out it matters. Which is why I ended up going to the graduate school I went to, because they didn't really care. They were unaccredited at the time I went to them. Now they are accredited, so good for them. But But we didn't care about any grades, you know. And then even though they still mattered, they wouldn't tell you your grades unless you requested them. You had to fill out a form, and then they'd tell you your grades. But you didn't really get them as a matter of course, and no one emphasized them. I remember finding out that a friend of mine, a girl, like had checked her grades and was like keeping track of it, and I just shook my head. I was like, "What's the matter with you, man? Why are you in college in the first place?" Now she's a lawyer, of course, making 6 fucking digits. No ire for her. She's just a very nice and intelligent person. I get a little hot under the collar when the topic of money comes up. Apologies. She's probably not even making 6 digits yet, but I bet she will. A girl like her, and the lawyer profession being what it is. But word to the wise, it's important to like understand the chessboard of life. But you know, my friend James and I would just we weren't lawyers in training. We were just, you know, we're like committed slackers, saying the pledge of allegiance to the flag of slackerdom. Day in and day out for many a long and lazy college day, and we just wander around. And it's not like I'm saying we're all that virtuous for that, but there's an element of virtue to it. I think there is, because leisure. Not that leisure exists in a vacuum from work. Actually, quite the opposite. But nevertheless, leisure and the collegiate life. And being able to take stock and take a moment, and a little bit like at that Kmart, except not at Kmart, and much more sort of ivy-clad environs, we'd wander around and just poke wise. Not so much at things, but you know, there'd be this or that item of local gossip, and whatever surreality we could overlay as well. And I still talk to him on the phone, like, a lot. Even though he's a Marxist. He's like a tanky, according to him. But he's more law-abiding than anybody I know. He gave me a hard time when I was, like, speeding once. I'm like, damn, son. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. You're gonna get rear-ended. They're gonna cream you in the rear, baby. You gotta stay on the ball. When skating over thin ice, our safety is in our speed. Sometimes, at least. And so, you know, I think that's de rigueur, actually, for Marylanders, old country types. They never really went. They never did the Oregon Trail. All the more homebody types stuck around the D.C., Maryland area. As a result, they're very old money, and even in a very pedestrian sense, old money. Even in like a very pedestrian middle class sense. They mind their P's and their quicksilvers. But the point being, really, just comedy, and it's not so off the tracks, really. I do consider my friend James to be one of the funniest people, like one of the most naturally funny people I know. And so, you know, even though he has sort of these from my perspective, abominable political leanings, they're not abominable for him because he doesn't realize their import, in my opinion. But he's happily blind to that. But nevertheless, you know, we talked a long time, and we managed to like completely avoid the topic of politics for the most part, except on sort of on a blue moon sometimes it would come up. And why is that? Like, well, because it's like, you know, we're just like recording Thalia together in a sense, and it's like if you have a friend who you play music with who's who's like, got a big tattoo of a swastika on one arm and a hammer and sickle on the other, and a big like body decal of Chairman Mao. His glaring eyes reach nipple. It's like, if he's a good musician though, you play music with him. A good tennis player, you play tennis with him, do you not? Well, within reason, I suppose. Unless he's actually dangerous, but most people really aren't. Not when you get them alone. People are mainly dangerous in groups, in my opinion. If you get pretty much anyone, almost anyone, alone, and you're like, you're gracious and humble and whatever, for the most part, that's reciprocated. For the most part. Not always, and it's not always, not that it's fully reciprocated, but a lot of times people really can't meet your eye, but you won't get straight malice in return, unless you happen to be married to them. Yeah. Anyway, according to Thalia, and I credit James somewhat to my own sense of humor, such that it is, just because I spent such a long time with him. And when we first met, he was definitely the way funnier of the two, in my opinion. Although he might actually say the reverse. I don't know. Oh, look at me, being all humble. What's the point? I really did like get on this whole theme of humor, I guess, because that is sort of my theme right now, even though I'm singing and songing as well, writing poetry. The poem I just wrote wasn't a particularly funny one. But comedy, of course, doesn't just spring out of itself. The old equation, of course, being that comedy is tragedy plus time. Someone falls down once, it's tragic. They fall down 2 or 3 times, it's funny. And in my own life, it seems a little bit that way. I go through this sort of hardship, and it's tragic. But then, like, I don't die. I'm like, and then like it happens like several more times, and it just. Oh my. And people need to laugh. I think they really do. So, to whatever extent I can get this script, maybe the stars will even align. I guess I will mention that serendipitous detail, which I skirted past yesterday, because I'm hopeful that it might be a good omen, for all I know. All that happened was, in my script, there's a character named Slapdash who loves to eat candy bars, and he's going to a convenience store, and among other things, he steals a couple candy bars. That's the only important detail. But then yesterday I was out on the street in Steubenville, which I'm kind of like taking as a model a little bit for where I envision this script the story Dirty Birds to be said. Oh, crime. I gotta get here, don't I? My GPS off, see if I can finagle this. Where I sort of take Dirty Birds to be said. In other words, it's this place where it's not a perfect fit, but it's an interesting place because there are a lot of like really conservative and sort of hard line or just nice, wholesome Catholics. But then it also like kind of has this underworld part too, where there's a lot of blight, a tremendous amount of blight, and drug addiction and scourges of one kind or another. I'm gonna turn here. I think this is gonna do me. I think this will do me. Will it? Maybe. I don't want to close this video because I know how hard it is to glue videos together. I took quite a while to go to those two sections of my video. My wife had no clue, of course, what her 3-second phone call to me cost me. Could have re-recorded, I guess, but that would have been its own hassle. So now I'm on airplane mode. I've learned my lesson. I'm James Bonding it. Trying to think of a conclusion because I'm here in Steubenville now. A little turned around. Maybe I'll just park at that BP and finish up, and then get back on the straight and narrow. But gosh, what was I even saying? About comedy, about this Dirty Birds thing. I lost my chain of reasoning. Setting it here. Let me try to backtrack this. It's been exercise in memory recall. Incidentally, again, why not? If I can't remember what I'm saying, I might as well tell you an anecdote about memory itself. Because I was in front of my porch, and with my wife and my kids, and some neighbors walked by who I'd never met, and I said something rather warm and friendly to them, and my wife gave me kind of a stink eye about it. She thought I was weirding them out, and oh, this place is cool. It's like from The Simpsons. The Quick King. Excellent. A royal station. And I said, man, Elizabeth, sometimes it just seems like you're allergic to friendliness. She said, I'm not allergic. And I said, well, friendliness isn't the right word. What's a more specific word for what I mean? And I spent like 15 minutes, because I had nothing better to do, just sort of, I was occupied with the children, just trying to think of like, what's this word that I'm thinking of? It's on the tip of my tongue. It means it means friendly, but in a more outwardly forward sense. A forward-facing friendliness. I mean, I'm sure there are a few, but the one I was thinking of that I came back to was gregarious, or maybe a sociable. In other words, not just friendly in a passive way, like someone says hello and you're friendly to them in response, but more actively friendly, such that you're inviting people into friendship, not just receptive to friendship. But that word came back to me just by, and it was mysterious to me how it even how stuff like that even works, because you're not really doing any specific thing in your mind other than you're kind of just like pointing your face up at an area of clouded sky and waiting for the sun to shine on you again. That's really all you're doing. There's a whole other story I haven't yet told you guys, which I may wait a little bit to tell or I could just tell it. I'll just tell it. I basically I don't know if you can get expelled. Can you get expelled as a teacher? It happened in a really funny way. My wife doesn't watch this channel, so she still thinks I'm there, which I feel a bit bad about, but I've only got a few days until I've got to be a mailman forever, apparently, according to my own designs. You never know what's going to happen, and if you use the right side of your brain a little more, your life will be much better than before. That had to do with this thing I was talking about so much. Oh yeah, this is a little product placement. Come and get it. Yummy. And I was noticed by a student vaping in class. So embarrassing. Oh my! I mean, it's such an addictive thing, and I don't know. I got a little sloppy with it, I'll be honest, because it's so discreet. Like, look at this thing. You know, you could put this anywhere. You could put this. You could tuck this behind your ear. You could tuck this behind your rear. Possibilities are endless. I would recommend that order, not the reverse, though. But I was suffice to say I was noticed vaping, and I had already been given a talking to about smoking on campus. Because not that I was even smoking near any kids, but just even the fact that I was smoking on the kid campus at Chuck E. Cheese University was enough to already sort of give me one strike, and I guess they're playing hardball. 2 strikes, you're out. It was fine, though. It was whatever. I had already given my notice, so I you know, they already knew I was out. Thankfully, it didn't happen much earlier than this. So yeah, I had been smoking at this Mary statue, or it was written in carved in lettering, "May they have life and have it more abundantly." What a beautiful sentiment. Yum, yum, yum. All James Dean and self-destructive looking, I guess. It's not such a bad habit, after all, is it? I mean, people are so obsessed with health these days. It's completely intolerable. But yeah, that happened. I got in a little zinger, though, right out the gate, because the principal told me into her office to turn over my slingshot and my rubber chicken and my whoopee cushion and my tax for teacher. I guess those would be suicide tax in my case. Suicide tax. And I got a zinger right out the gate because she had me all. Well, first I grabbed a whole. I noticed there was a candy jar, so I grabbed a whole handful of Tootsie Rolls. I was looking for loopholes at that place to not wear the mask. So our whole conversation, I was like munching on little Tootsie Rolls. I was, picture that. And it was like, Madam Principal, I won't say a real name, but Kate, Principal Kate, don't tell me anything. Let me guess. I always hate it when people just don't tell you the truth, right? They're they build the suspense. And I said, don't say a word. Let me guess. You're gonna make me in charge of the entire English department, aren't you? And I just started cracking up, and I don't know. I got her to smile a little bit and cheered her up, I think. 'Cause I don't think she really enjoys doing the heavy, and it's probably kind of a sour, sort of a bitter thing for her, and lighten her load a little bit. Why not? Because I don't have it out for her. She's a rather nice person, actually. Actually, she's from these parts in Ohio. Might explain it, why she's a nice person. But yeah, I mean, I said, don't worry about my feelings, Principal Kate. And she's, well, I do worry about people's feelings. And she's all masked up, and I'm not eating as I am Tootsie Rolls. What a funny image in and of itself, objectively. And I say, well, that's good on you. It really is. I'm glad that you're sensitive. I'm sure you need to be in your occupation. But when it comes to me and myself, don't feel like you have to feel bad for me, really. But it turns out, and then she shared with me, when you're open with people, often sometimes you'll get people who are open back. It's a nice thing about being open. The bad side about being open is, you'll show them your medulla oblongata. Hey, check it out. Look at that. Looks like a little your pearls before swine, and they'll, they'll shove a sock in your mouth. They will. But you can make jokes even with a sock in your mouth or a mask on your face. Oh man, this thing's been to the gym. Oh. Like, in other words, there's nothing you can't joke about. I mean, there's things that you probably should not joke about, or there's situations that are probably not appropriate to joke in certain contexts. But, like, in the same way that, like, there's no surface you can't draw on, there's no rock that can't be moved. There's no, whatever, fill in the analogy blank. There's no situation that can't be, that doesn't have its rejoinder. There's just not. Sometimes it's harder to find that one, just like sometimes it's harder to haul a boulder than a stone, than a pebble. They don't all come trippingly to the forked tongue, but I don't know why I say that. Ah, fucking shit. Spelled Red Bull on me. Blessing in disguise. I don't know why I say forked tongue, 'cause it's not really forked tongue. I just didn't want to say tongue, 'cause I get tired of my own phraseology. I'm trying to mix it up. Couldn't think of any other phrase for a tongue that would make it more specific. I don't even know if there is a good synonym for tongue. Your wagger. Your wet wagger. Your wet whip. Your wet wagger whip. Soft palate. Okay. Well, we're not doing vocabulary hour. This is not a vocabulary class. Solely. But this is getting kind of long. But why don't I just run this bad boy out? At least through this Red Bull and whatever else. Have the Quickie King. The first is speech. Maybe just get me back rolling. And not a comedy speech. In fact, but it related to comedy, because this is a speech I did for these kids. Oh yeah, so what I was going to say, briefly, the other thing is that after I was open, and then she was open, as I was saying, openness for openness. A problem with the vaping is that it's a big problem with kids there, apparently. The kids think I'm really cool. Not the kids in my class, as it happens. I think I sort of had they started cutting class. They started playing hooky, and I didn't really have the heart to turn them in, given that everything that's going on and these little zombie children. I just thought, let them have a little bit of freedom, even if it's let that axe fall on me. I can afford it, given that I'm all set up now with USPS on Monday. But so not those kids, who I think I'm just sort of some kind of weirdo guy, writing poems on the blackboard occasionally, all pretentious like, and no, it's the students of this English teacher, who's actually an actress, who I met in the faculty lounge, and who I told was doing the play, and she invited me to do scenes for the kids, which I did, and I really threw myself into it and hammed it up, and it was a really great time, and I managed to really blow their socks off. Not trying to toot my own horn, but, not trying to mute my own horn either. Because I think some of them were, it's kind of easy to impress teenagers after a fashion. And I was being even like a little bit sly and saying things borderline inappropriate. Because they have a real like desire for the real and for reality and people being authentic. So for instance, I was describing this scene, which I'll now recite. I'm just reminded in part by this sun that's shining through the clouds. I'm going to have a peek. Not that I can through all that well. Through these murky clouds above the baseball field. And I was trying to explain the scene, which, like as I said, is related to comedy. In that, at the start of King Henry IV, Part 1, Prince Hal, who gives this speech in an aside, is gallivanting all around. He's drinking mead and doing any old wacky thing, basically with a band of bandits, a group of bandits. The ringleader of which is, of course, Falstaff, the big fat Orson Welles type Falstaff, Santa Claus Falstaff. And they're all carousing and having fun in the background, and then he steps to the foreground, and he's the heir to the throne of the king. And speaking of kings and royalty, and to all appearances, everyone thinks he's a complete prodigal son. But just like the biblical one turns out who comes back. So he's seeing them all, and Falstaff is saying that they'll be the minions of the moon, and they have no need of formalities like kinghood and crownship. And I said to the kids, well, have you ever been at a party a little too long? I mean, and it's a little like that. But then, the understatement thing I said to them is, these are people trying to paint a vivid picture, something to bring it to life a little bit for them. These lifeless little zombie children. Said, these guys have booty, in every sense of the word. So I was getting a few sly remarks. Why not? Bros before you knows. I said that. Some wise Alec, some wise guy said, "Oh, you can say it, Teach. We won't snitch." He actually said that. It's pretty funny. We won't snitch. And I said, "You already said it in your own head, son." So there you go. Bros before you knows. You know. I don't have to say it. But the speech goes like this, because he's, everyone thinks he's a total ragamuffin. But then he steps off. He looks up at the sky. A sky a little bit like this one, I think. It says, "I know you all will a while uphold the unyoked humor of your idleness. Yet herein I imitate the sun, who doth permit the base, contagious clouds to smother up his beauty from the world, that being wanted he may be more wondered at. When he please to be himself, and break through the foul mists of vapors that did seem to strangle him. If all the year were playing holiday, to sport would be as tedious as to work. But when they seldom come, they wished for come, and nothing pleaseth but rare accidents. So, when this loose behavior I throw off, and pay the debt I never promised, by how much better than my word I am. And like bright metal on a sullen ground, my reformation shall shine more brightly than that which hath no foil to set it off. I'll thus offend to make offence a skill, redeeming time, when men think least I will." So, tragedy, comedy, tragicomedy, comma-tragedy. They're doing Romeo and Juliet, which I explained to them, I think, is kind of the opposite of the Winter's Tale. One's a tragedy that becomes comedic, or that becomes not comedic, but romantic, maybe. Yeah, there's a romance that ends tragically, of course. Anyway, there with Principal Kate, saying, people think that vaping is cool because they think you're really cool. She told me they did. I was like, cool. They think I'm cool? Man, that's cool. Lauren? Ah, damn it, I just said her real name. Well, that's just a first name. Not a big deal, right? I mean, Kate? I offered to do a PSA, so I'll do a PSA. Vaping is not cool, Principal. I know that better than anybody. I do. That's really not particularly cool. It's not. Smoking, on the other hand, of course, is extremely cool. We should be telling them to smoke. Actually, I was in class, I have to say. I could just go on and on and on forever, so I should cut this off, but I was in class. Maybe I already shared this. I think maybe I did, where I asked some kid, one of the kids who just started playing hooky. I never saw him again. Actually, I did see him one final time my last day at his locker. I was like, hey man, where'd you go? He made up some kind of white lie to tell me, I think. Either way. And he said he's going to school in Colorado. And I looked at him and said, oh yeah. Beat. Weed. He said, yeah. And I said, no man, if you really want to try something cool,